Kalofalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Koroi Hawkins. Coming up, the opposition group in Papua New Guinea are looking to force an early sitting of Parliament to table a motion of no confidence in the Prime Minister. Also,
it is with a profound sadness that we at the Diabetes Fiji Incorporate reported the recent loss of 3 young members.
Calls for urgent action to prevent deaths and improve the quality of life for people living with diabetes in Fiji. And later on,
like the wind we still move, like the waves we rise high, like the sun we never die.
We speak with Mia Kami, Tongan activist, singer-songwriter and now teacher. The opposition in Papua New Guinea believes it could still force an early sitting of Parliament to hear a vote of no confidence. The last session of Parliament ended suddenly in mid-June when the government abruptly adjourned Parliament. The opposition has questioned the actions of the Speaker in doing this as they tried to file their motion, and they got some support last week from the National Court. Our PNG correspondent Scott Waide told Don Wiseman about the latest developments.
Yesterday, lawyers for the Speaker's office and the Attorney General's office made submissions to the Supreme Court. I haven't had the opportunity to actually see the submissions on paper as yet, but this follows the ruling by the court that the opposition leader had standing to take the questions surrounding the validity of the VONC process to the courts for clarification. Now, the previous ruling also highlighted that there are precedences in previous situations similar to this one that show that any delay in the VONC is in fact not in the spirit of the Constitution, in particular Section 145. Now, the opposition leader said that the opposition's lawyers will push for a hearing sooner than the 18th, as has been said by the court. Douglas Tomariesa, the opposition leader, feels that they would have a good chance of convincing the court to entertain an earlier date, which could lead to an earlier resumption of Parliament. But then again, that hinges on the court's decision.
How keen are they, the opposition? Because at the end of all of this process, it doesn't appear that they actually have the numbers to roll the government, or do they?
Realistically speaking, they don't have the numbers to do it. They don't have the numbers to do it. You know, as in PNG politics, they're hoping that within the final hours leading up to the vote of no confidence, people will move over. And that revolves around promises of ministries, the possibility of jobs for members of the opposition if they get into government. And that's the usual trend of things in PNG politics. And the other thing that's important to note is that the opposition is still calling for a change in leadership, and that's what they've been calling for the last 2-3 weeks, the whole month, in fact, with the shift of members from one side to the other. Now, this could indicate that they are looking for a compromise, although they're not saying it very publicly and very explicitly. But there are indications that if James Marape were to step aside, were to vacate the position of Prime Minister, and if somebody else were to take over, then they would be happy with working with the new person. Now, that again is subject to their own internal processes of recognizing that. But that's the current situation right now. That's the general feeling of some opposition members, at least. From the other members who have moved over with Rainbow Paita, former planning minister, Rainbow's also talked about looking towards that prime minister position. And he's also set up a party of his own, recruited new MPs to join, MPs who have also resigned from Pangu. So that's the situation right now.
And when this element in the opposition talks about James Marape standing down and being replaced by someone else, they have in mind Rainbow Paita.
No, they're talking about people within government ranks itself. Again, they're not saying it very clearly and very openly, but they have said that, you know, the Prime Minister needs to step aside. That's the thrust of their message right now.
For what reason specifically?
They're citing the ailing economy as one of the primary factors behind this. They're saying that the leadership is responsible for this downturn in the economy. It's responsible for practically all the ailments that the economy is suffering right now.
But Rainbow Paita was a key character in establishing most of that until the very recent past. So it doesn't cut much ice, does it, that argument?
Yeah, that's the subject of discussions on social media. That's the subject of discussions, particularly on the WhatsApp groups, which have been very active in the last 6 months since the talk of the vote of no confidence came about. So, yes, it's a topic of discussion, yes.
Now, the next session of Parliament, the next regular session of Parliament is due in early September. And the way it's going, it could itself again be dominated by a threat of a vote of no confidence, couldn't it?
Yes, it will most likely be dominated by discussions around a vote of no confidence and its threat of a possible takeover by the opposition. There's also this sense of weariness among the public, feel that this thing could be easily resolved and should be resolved and put on the shelves so that the actual running of the country could happen. And there are serious concerns around fuel shortages, the state of the economy, the forex. Just yesterday's newspaper, there was something about fuel prices increasing again. So that's going to put pressure on businesses, and businesses are going to feel the pinch, especially businesses outside of Port Moresby, outside of Lae, where the ports for the fuel are. So it's going to put additional squeeze on the businesses and generally the lives of Papua New Guineans.
Diabetes Fiji is calling for immediate and comprehensive action to prevent further tragedies and improve the quality of life for people diagnosed with diabetes. Acting Chief Executive Marawa Kini says they recently lost 3 young members of their Young Diabetes Fiji program due to complications. RNZ's Delphine Herbert spoke to Marawa Kini about the tragedies.
It is with a profound sadness that we at the Diabetes Fiji Incorporate reported the recent loss of 3 young members due to complications related to diabetes. These tragic events underscore the urgent need for comprehensive actions to address the growing of diabetes crisis in our community. So with the 3 recent cases, young people young people living with diabetes, they face a lot of, challenges in terms of, how they access to the health services. One of them is staying far from the subdivisional hospitals, who lives in interior of Nauvosa. So in terms of geographical layouts, that's one of the challenges. A type 1 who has to reach out to the services that is needed for her, which only available in the subdivisional hospital, which is in the west. The second one that was based on the how for them to take control their diabetes, and she's find challenging in terms of support. Both of them, they having a family challenges of the family support, where parents have they have raised from a broken family, and as explanation of the recent losses, the losses of these young lives is a stark reminder of the severe complication that diabetes can impose. Each of these individuals face a complication that were excreted and inadequate access to timely medical care and insufficient management of their condition. Despite our best efforts to support them, the lack of resources and awareness significantly hindered their ability to manage their diabetes effectively. So Diabetes Fiji call for comprehensive actions. We are calling for multi-phase approach to tackle diabetes effectively. This includes increased funding, allocation more financial resources to diabetes care, research where Fiji is currently lacking with. That's something that we talk to the government of the day if it's something that we can rectify and work together and to support the program. Another highlight in terms of call for actions is education and awareness, implementing widespread education campaigns to raise awareness about diabetes prevention and management. Thirdly, I can say it's improve healthcare services and to enhance access of quality healthcare services, including regular screening, timely medical intervention, and availability of essential medications. So when talking about the increased funding, there's a need more funding in terms of education and services. Absolutely, more funding will be enable us to expand our outreach and support program, as we are the only dedicated organization in Fiji to advocate more on the issues of diabetes, which providing necessary resources for those affected by diabetes. Education is crucial in empowering individuals to take proactive steps in managing their health, and enhancing healthcare services will ensure that individuals receive timely and appropriate care, reducing the risk of complication. Consequences of inactions. If we do not take immediate and comprehensive actions, the diabetes crisis will continue to escalate. This could result in the increase of morbidity and mortality rates, placing a significant burdens on our healthcare system and impact the overall well-being of our community. We cannot afford the complaints, and the cost of inaction is far too high. As government already announced the budget for the financial year 2024 to 2025, that it costs 540 million to the health sector. Just 450 million that mainly were just a small portion that directly comes to us. And we're talking about these burden issues, but these are small portions have been dedicated, but mainly for the Ministry of Health. But the dedicated organizations such as us, it's not justified to us for their support. Additional remarks on this to the questions you've sent to me, that Diabetes Fiji Incorporated will remain committed to our missions of supporting those affected by diabetes and advocating for better healthcare policies. We urge all our stakeholders, including government agencies, healthcare providers, and the community at large to join us with the crucial fighting against diabetes. Together we can make a difference and prevent further tragedies.
On Wednesday, leaders from Guam and Japan gathered to repatriate remains of up to 8 Japanese soldiers from World War II back home. As our Guam correspondent Naina Rao reports, officials signed off the transfer at the Guam Governor's Office.
Over the last few years, Guam's State Historic Preservation Office discovered burial remains of Japanese soldiers from World War II in 3 different locations. They were officially transferred into Japanese custody on Wednesday, following the U.S. territory's 80th anniversary of Liberation Day. Governor Lilian Guerrero says returning the remains back is the most civil and right thing to do in partnership with their Japanese ally.
We will never forget the atrocities of war, but that doesn't stop us from forgiving.
Liberation Day commemoration services are held annually in the U.S. territory, marking the invasion by U.S. military forces on July 21, 1944, which ended Japanese occupation.
A Tongan activist, singer-songwriter and now teacher says taking young students on overseas music tours teaches them more than meets the eye. Miyakami has travelled to Aotearoa this week with the Tupou College Brass Band for the Pacific Festival of Brass. She told Lydia Lewis the boys have been practicing almost every day since the start of the year, and it's been a treat watching their faces light up from the moment they boarded the flight over to New Zealand.
We got here about 2 weeks ago, so most of it has just been braving the cold and fighting illness to make sure that the boys don't get sick for the competition. But it's been really special because a lot of these kids have never traveled, they've never been overseas, they've never been on a plane, they've never experienced weather like this before. So it's really just a beautiful experience as a teacher to witness, especially for the kids that I teach that I brought over as well. Just seeing them in a completely different environment, they're meeting new people, which they don't get very often because we live in the bush.
You're a teacher of potentially the future king of Tonga. Tell me a bit about that.
So we are one of the few islands that have a constitutional monarchy, and so our current king, his grandson is a student at our college, and he just joined this year. So he's 11, and he's a beautiful kid. He's very smart, and he's a lot of fun to be around. A lot of people think that they get all of this different treatment or anything like that within the school, but at the end of the day, there's still a student for us, and so he's still a student for us, and of course, like, we understand that in certain contexts we have to recognize that he is royalty, and we recognize it every day, of course, but not to the point where we want it to restrict his learning and why he came to Tupou College in the first place, because he's come to connect with the people and he's doing that exactly. And so that's why he's joined us on this trip, so that he can support his fellow students in the competition.
You mentioned just these new experiences that you're witnessing. Can you give me an example of a special moment that you've seen?
The first one was getting on the plane. I overheard one of the boys, he was sitting next to the window seat, and he looks out and he was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the wing of the plane!" And so there was that, and then when we arrived in Aotearoa, when they got out of the airport, they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's aircon outside!" And then we went to the zoo, and a lot of them have never seen, like, animals like that before. They saw tigers, but they loved the monkeys. You know, like, seeing all of those, just like boyhood, you know, like this innocent glimpse of boyhood that we don't normally see back home because they don't see these new experiences. And so I think that's just really special, and to be able to be a part of witnessing that, I think that's an experience for me that I'll never forget.
And this year is the Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Meeting, which will be held in Tonga. Are you preparing anything for that, or will the kids be performing?
At the moment, we've mainly been focusing on this competition. It's been a really busy 2 months for the kingdom, because we've had Heilala Week. We also had one of the biggest church conference gatherings for our country that just finished in the last week. And so a lot of our focus has been on those particular things. Like, we had our second brass band for our college. They were performing at the Heilala Week. They also performed at the conference. And so right now that's been our focus. But I am seeing that there's a lot of active preparation from our government for PIFs. And I really am just hoping for the best possible outcome, that the discussions are productive, and most importantly, that action actually does take place afterwards. And I do hope that art is elevated as a means of communication, as a means of discussing these issues. And I do hope that they're able to include a lot more intergenerational conversations. And I think that's what a lot of our Pacific Island communities struggle with, is being able to allow young people a space at the table to be a part of the conversation. Not in a way where they're going to come and just tell our elders, like, that's not how we're meant to be doing it, but instead to have productive conversations that allow for us to learn how could we be better for our generation, for those that will come after us. And so I'm really just hoping that whatever comes after is productive and effective, and actually centers how whatever they do is going to be what needs to be done for us, for the up-and-coming generation.
Tell me about your own personal music journey.
Honestly, since I became a teacher at Tupou College, my whole life has just become Tupou College. But I have been writing, and a lot of it is for the school. But I have no issue with that, because I think that any
boys, get in the car.
Boys, do your homework. It's more like songs that sort of tell the story of the college, because the school's focus is trying to elevate the boys in mind, body, and spirit, and so they get a theme every year, and so I write around the theme. But I like that, because I think it's anything that tugs your creative strings is creative work in the making. I don't like to say that the advocacy work is on pause right now. I think it's just taking a little nap so that I can focus on trying to mold the young minds of my boys.
I mean, the great thing about music, though, is it continues, you know, even though for you may be taking a pause, your song still travels and still impacts people. Can you just explain the writing process and maybe just one line in that song?
Yeah, so Rooted is a song that I wrote back in 2018. It was for an anti-logging campaign in the Oro province of Papua New Guinea. And I really wanted to highlight the many faces and places of the Pacific region. And so even the music video itself was a collaborative effort between the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, West Papua, Marshall Islands, Samoa. Like, it was all just a mix of different people from around the region. And the whole premise of the song was I wanted to show the faces and places of the Pacific, but I did not expect response to be as big as it became. And it turned into this sort of anthem of resilience and this anthem of hope and this anthem of like, we're here to stay. Like, you're not moving us. Like, you can try and do this to our people, our place, our land, our oceans, but at the end of the day, we're not going anywhere. And that's what it transformed into, and I'm so thankful that it was, because I think it really does go to show the power of art and the power of music and the power of storytelling, and how important it is that we reclaim our narratives, because at the end of the day, it's our stories that need to be told, and it needs to be told by our people. One of the main lines that I was very proud of when I was writing it was, like the wind we still move. Oh my gosh, what were the words?
Like something we rise up.
Oh, look at you, yeah. Like the wind we still move. Like the wind we still move. Like the waves we rise high. Like the sun we never die. And I think that perfectly sums up our resilience as Pacific people.
That's Pacific Waves for today. To listen back, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, Tongfa Suifua.